But on behalf of the town of Wethersfield, I would like to read this proclamation for Bike and Walk Month for May of 2020. Whereas for more than a century, the bicycle has been an important part of the lives of most Americans, and whereas today, millions of Americans engage in bicycling as an environmentally sound form of transportation, an excellent form of fitness, and provides quality family recreation, and whereas the education of cyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles are important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users, and whereas the League of American Bicyclists and independent cyclists throughout our state are promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and the safety education in an effort to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities. And whereas the town of Wethersfield recognizes the health benefits of walking and the social and economic benefit of a safe walking community. And whereas the town of Wethersfield, through groups like Bike, Walk Wethersfield, Safe Routes to Schools, Central Connecticut Health District, Bicycle and Pedestrian Stakeholders Advisory Committee, and others are striving to make our community more bicycle and pedestrian friendly through events such as Bike and Walk to School Day, Bike to Work Day, Mayor's Bike and Walk, High School Bicycle Club, Bike Fest, Step into Summer, and through the addition of facilities like bike racks and park benches. Now, therefore, on council, I, Michael L. Rell, Mayor of the town of Wethersfield, do I deem the month of May 20th Bike and Walk Month in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and commend its observance to all citizens. In witness that I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Wethersfield to be affixed this 18th day of May 2020. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity on behalf of the town of Wethersfield. It couldn't be more appropriate, talking about fitness and providing quality family recreation. I think right now, as we are, hunkered down in quarantine and practicing safe stay-home policies during this difficult period that those who like to get out on a bike do. I see my neighbors, including my kids, and my wife and I go out on bike rides as much as we possibly can with our kids. And it really is a perfect opportunity for the family and for exercise during this period. So thank you for allowing me to read that into the record on behalf of the town. Next, and I see, yep, Chris, you're coming up next. So now, are you going to do a presentation, Chris?
I am not going to do a presentation. I'm just going to talk.
That is fine.
Unless Mary wants to share my report, but it doesn't make sense to.
Up to you. I can put it on the screen.
Go right ahead. We're all ears. I think got a number of people watching on TV and live on their own Zoom. So the floor is yours.
And if not, I can put the screen up too. It's up to you.
No, I think we're fine. I'm just going to really briefly go over it. The council received a copy of the Heritage Commission's annual report. And for many of you, you probably have not had the annual report before because you are newer on the council. But the Heritage Commission was formerly the Tourism Commission. We've actually been overseeing tourism efforts in Wethersfield for more than 20 years. I was kind of surprised when I wrote that this year, how long it's been. But our mission is really to develop, recommend, and coordinate proposals and programs that have to do with culture and arts for Wethersfield, and really to strengthen the local visitor experience and to promote business in the town of Wethersfield. So the commission has a number of ongoing programs. We promote Wethersfield with marketing and media collateral. We maintain a website presence. We do campaigns for brand awareness. We do press releases. We have a newsletter. We do magazine and television promotions. We promote local events with a calendar as well as a monthly newsletter, and we handle visitor inquiries. Now, the nice thing about tourism in Wethersfield is that it is a growing market segment in the travel industry to the tune of $15.5 billion. And they anticipate that that will continue to grow. So we are supporting not only our local historical sites and museums, but we are also supporting our local retail and hospitality business in town, which helps with our tax revenue in town and reduces the burden that may fall on businesses and our residents without having those businesses in the community. So the commission is made up of a number of dedicated residents in town, and Peter Gillespie, who is the Department of Planning and Economic Development, is our trusty staff person who we rely on for a number of things. Peter does a phenomenal job, and we are very lucky to have him. So just a quick overview on some of the activities that we've done in 2019. So social media is really becoming our primary tool for talking about the town and generating interest. Our historic Wethersfield website has had more than 100,000 visits, and that's up significantly from prior years. We host a Facebook page, so if you are not a friend and liked the historic Wethersfield Facebook page, you should do that. It's in our best interest. We have an Instagram account, we have a Twitter account, and we have a YouTube channel. And so really over the last couple of years, we have had some short videos of things like Holidays on Main, the parade for Memorial Day, the May encampment. It's a nice way for people to go back and revisit some of the activities. The nice thing about the social media is that the actual touch points are increased proportionally as people share or comment on those pages as well. So we really end up getting a significant amount of information out into the community through social media. Our newsletter has over 900 contacts, and that does not include the fact that the newsletter goes out through the Board of Education to all the families in the town as well. We advertise on digital boards. If any of you have been to a visitor center, you might want to take a look at one of the visitor boards and find Wethersfield. It's done very well. We've had over 170,000 views on those digital boards. It's where people can just go and check out different places to go and see. And last year we had over 20 stories that appeared in various media, whether it was television, USA Today, Fox 61. We are once again one of the prettiest winter villages in New England. Thank you. Nice job, Wethersfield. In addition to that, we have some print material. So we have advertising rack cards that go out over 234 sites at hotels, visitor centers, all along 84, 91, 95, the visitor center in Mystic Center as well. We have print brochures at the Heritage Walk, which has been very popular in town. Those are our 18 different panels throughout town that we have. And soon to be made available on our the historic Wethersfield website is the Bike and Walk Wethersfield tours. So we have been working with Bike and Walk Wethersfield and the Bike and Walk stakeholder group to develop PDFs and then GPS interactive maps of walking tours and bike tours in Wethersfield. Again, it encourages physical activity, and just lets people know where they can go in town to view some of the sites. We do the annual photo contest, which is always very popular, and allows us to advertise the great vistas in our community, as well as some of our historic sites and activities. In terms of visitor promotions, we have been working with all of the stakeholders. So that includes the local museums, the shopkeepers, the Wethersfield Academy of Art. And really over the last couple of years, this group has shared their calendars. They've talked about opportunities for piggybacking on each other's events. And so we have now created a couple of what are now town standards. So we have the May encampment, which usually follows the Memorial Day parade. This will be the first year in probably 7 or 8 years that we will not have that, unfortunately. We've had expanded fall offerings. We have lantern tours now. We have a harvest festival. We have lecture series. We have the Webb Dean Stevens Thanksgiving dinner. We have the scarecrows along Main Street. And one of the big favorites is Holidays on Main, where we launch the holiday season. And what we soon hope to be a new tradition is the Shopkeepers Porch Fest, which had its inauguration last August. So really, it's been a great opportunity for all of the different organizations and businesses to work cooperatively in bringing visitors into town and spreading the workload amongst a number of different organizations. Just a couple of special projects in the last year. The Heritage Commission has been an active participant in the bicycle and pedestrian meetings and working on putting together a complete streets policy and a strategic plan to make the town bicycle and pedestrian friendly. As part of that work, we worked on creating and filing for an AARP Community Challenge Grant, and we were awarded with $10,000. So the new bike racks that you've been seeing around town with the great historic Wethersfield logo on them, and the benches are courtesy of that $10,000 challenge grant that we received from AARP. We also worked with the town on the CCGP grant, which has awarded more than $300,000 to, again, make improvements on vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic in Wethersfield. So those are some of our accomplishments. And going forward in 2020 and 2021, we will continue to implement the Old Wethersfield Master Plan. This has really been truly a working document in that we have been able to implement a number of the recommendations, and it's not a plan that just sits on the shelf. We are looking at completing the final phase of the wayfinding signage. We hope to be able to work on creating a regularly scheduled river cruise that leaves from the Cove as things start to open up this year. Continuing to work with Bike Walk Wethersfield on creating a pedestrian and bike-friendly community, and working with the Old Wethersfield business community on creating an attractions and business directory. And really, we just want to say thank you to the Town Council for your support of the Commission and its efforts to promote tourism and generate economic development activity. And with that, I will open it up if anyone has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Chris? Councilor Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. Chris, and probably by extension, Peter, phenomenal efforts are being made, changing the look and feel of our town, all to the positive. I was just wondering if I didn't really necessarily hear the outreach that you're necessarily doing to the greater, the greater society at large. Is there, maybe I missed it, there was a lot of things there, but is there a online, Facebook, social media push in order to pull all these things together? And it's nice that we know it as a town council, but really, of course, the benefit is to the whole town.
Right. No. So our webmaster really works very hard on getting posts on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Twitter and the YouTube channel. Although Facebook and Instagram are probably the primary tools. And it's really not only talking about some of the great venues that we have in the community and some of the great sites, but it's also advertising some of the local events coming up. And as people share that information, it goes out to more and more people. I mean, I've had friends in California who have responded when I've shared one of the posts going, wow, that's great. I think that's terrific. So you really do start to get a lot more awareness of what's going on with the social media.
And have you seen or been tracking your, for lack of a better term, hits or search engine stuff
and
like that?
And the hits have really been going up.
Yeah.
Yes, they're definitely going up. And one of the advantages of the social media, in particular Facebook, is for a very nominal fee, you can boost a local event, and it ends up going out to more friends of friends and public listings so that it's seen more often. So it's been a great way to kind of boost the advertising at a very low cost.
I know besides, Facebook is certainly the easiest and the first, but everyone gets their information from multi-channels now, and I don't know exactly what the penetration necessarily is of Facebook in the Weathersfield Society. Even if it's half, which I think is maybe even a big number, even though a lot of us on the council use it. What are you doing for other avenues to inform?
So one of the things we did was we tested out doing some radio advertising. We had a channel or station, Peter, I'm not sure, down in the southeastern part of the state who we thought it might make sense to do a little bit of work. And so for a very reasonable fee, they created a 30-second spot for us. It played over 2 months during the fall, talking about some of the events that are coming up. We were really happy with it, and the commission is really looking at maybe doing some more radio advertising, potentially on NPR, because that seems to be an audience where the people who have the dollars and the interest in historic tourism it's probably a bigger audience there, and a little more reasonably priced.
All
And we've
sounds
done
reasonable.
print ads on occasion, but we just find that print ads are not as cost effective.
I think that a lot of businesses are finding that, so it seems pretty in line with what I'm hearing from other business owners and marketers for that matter. And how about leveraging the schools? Have we been able to leverage the schools? I mean, I'm sure Mike Emmett's very affable guy that works with all kinds of organizations to see success in our town. Didn't know if you were able to do that.
We haven't worked directly with the schools. I mean, other than our newsletter, which goes out every month to all of the families, so they get that information about what's going on. But we just, it's a group of volunteers that are working on the commission. We don't have any paid staff except for Peter. And to be honest, Peter has got his plate fairly full with a lot of things going on. And so we really just try and make the best use of the small dollars that we have.
All right, Christine. Well, I'm sure if you ever needed help, making some of those connections, or if you have other outlets, love to chat with you. And thanks for doing such a great job.
Yep, you are more than welcome, and we will reach out then.
Great.
Never offer, because I'll take you up on it.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Matt, for those questions. Anybody else? Well, not so much questions, but definitely accolades for what you guys are doing. I got to be honest with you, I get on Instagram more than I do on Facebook because I don't really like reading through 1,000 posts. I like looking at the pictures, it reminds me back of my youth. But I think on Instagram, when you post photos of some of the attractions in Old Weathersfield and in Weathersfield in general, it's great to see our neighbors being promoted and the job that you're doing. I will tell you though that there are so many opportunities in Weathersfield, and listening to you, they came rolling right off your tongue with the encampment. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that this year, but that's always, that Heritage Weekend is, it's actually only a couple days from now if we would be able to do it. It really is one of our favorites. You can finish up the parade and then just walk right around, visit the Webb Dean Stevens Museum, be there for the encampment, heirloom market. It's just the entire Main Street is abuzz with everything that's going on. People are around and definitely engaged in what Weathersfield has to offer. As well, you got to love the Porch Fest. That was a trial last year. I think it was a huge success. I brought my kids down with me. My wife unfortunately had to work, so she missed it, but she wanted me to take photos of some of the kids with some of their friends' parents who are actually playing some of the instruments, and they all got involved in we're excited about it. Hopefully that will be able to go off again later this summer.
Right.
Fingers crossed that we're gonna be in that phase where we can start to do those socializations. And then, of course, Holidays on Main is always, a great attraction. It brings a great, downtown, feel to what we're doing in Old Weathersfield. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. I don't know if you had any questions for us or any other comments. Kevin and Bob are still on. I saw, Bob, your photo before you actually do the video is of the front door of the,
Buckler.
yes, right on
Yes,
Main
Buckley.
Street.
It's actually,
Yeah.
it's actually the side door, but it's my view of my kitchen. So it's,
Oh, okay.
Ah,
I'm trying to make that my background. Steel is nice work.
Yeah, no, it's definitely prominently displayed on a lot of tourism brochures that
Wake up to it.
everybody puts out. So it is a great thing for the town
I
of
just
Weathersfield.
wanted to jump on quick for Bike Walk Weathersfield, just to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council, Peter, also Derek, and Public Works for the support that we're getting, and just give Chris a pat on the back. Chris did that whole AARP grant basically by herself. Kevin and I chipped in a little bit, but I think as a taxpayer to see $10,000 come in, and bike racks and benches and signs come in without any kind of skin out of our budget is like one of the things that we like to do. And there were also the Heritage Way, which has been a bike route for years, now has signs to let people know that they're on the Heritage Way. So that was one of the things to brand and market the Heritage Way for the tourists that come in on bicycles. And hopefully the next phase would be to start to point out all the sites along the way. And there are bike racks, like you mentioned. The pandemic is getting people on their bikes and walking. It's not just, it's everywhere, but the bike racks are deployed all around town. Wilkes Farms and the Pitkin Center, and basically everywhere you see them pop up, it's all on the strength of this AARP grant. So we do appreciate even recognizing Bike Walk Month. In past years, it was kind of like it was a lonely thing, but now it's like all the advocacy that we try to do, like the pandemic has done, like a lot of the work for us. It's gotten people out connecting with their kids and families and riding safely. And that's our big stress is just try to make the town safer, lower speed limits, get people used to seeing people walking and respecting cyclists, as vehicles, and make it safer for cars too.
yeah. And seriously, if I can add, Rob, I think the work that the committee has been doing on creating the complete streets policy and working towards that end, and just talking about the intersections where there are issues and the rest of it, really has put this town that much farther ahead with the lockdown and so many more people out on the streets. So it's been really great to have all that work that we've been working on for the last year in place as we start to wrap it up.
Yeah. And we do have, Matt, you mentioned the social media. Our Facebook page has about, I think, 500 something people in town who follow it. And like some of the posts that you wouldn't even think, like the Heritage Way signs,
Yeah.
that tons of hits and shares, and people from town to town are sharing, where can I ride in Weathersfield? And a lot of people, despite the nice trails by the Cove and the Folleybrook Trail, the crushed stone, you see people like, how come there are no trails in Weathersfield? Because if you move here, it hasn't been an easy thing to find, and even down to the Meadows, which I know you're going to talk about, but it's definitely an untapped resource. So, but we're grateful for all the help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, we appreciate it.
If I could just add one thing to run with the Meadows that Rob just mentioned. Later on the agenda is the LOTCIP grant, and we would very strongly support the council's consideration of accepting that grant, or that going forward with that application.
Yeah.
That would be an awesome asset to the town, and that would probably get constructed right around the time when the Putnam Bridge gets completed with its bike ped path on the bridge. So that would be a great asset for the town. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. But we appreciate it. really, really do appreciate it. I wish it was better circumstances and everybody went out and rode with their family and biked and walked. But if we can keep this up, it is definitely a welcome sight, at least in my respect. And I know probably with Kevin Hills as well. You look out our front window and there's people all throughout the green. So it is great to see people enjoying and being outside and taking advantage of what we have to offer. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine, Kevin,
You're
and
welcome.
Rob. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
And Peter, of course, you too. On behalf of the town, couldn't forget
We
it.
love Peter.
Yes. Great. Okay. Gary, do we have anybody for public comment?
Just going to sorry, losing my voice. I'm just going to double check. I didn't see anyone come through, and no one has logged in.
Gary, no,
Thank-
good.
Yep. There you go, Gary. I'm going to give you a little bit. I was going to let you hang for just a little while longer, but I was going to get you.
I see how it is. What I was trying to say was I'm just going to double check. I didn't see any that arrived previously, and there's no one currently on the line. So at this point, there is no public comment.
Great. Okay. Well, we do have a second opportunity, so if anybody's watching, they can call in numbers out there, Gary.
Yep, I'm just going to read it off just in case. It is the call-in number always remains the same. That's 929-205-6099. And then the meeting ID number is 951-4330-2942.
Thank you. If we get anybody second time period, are we back to 5 minutes tonight, I think?
Yep.
In a standard council meeting, non-budget presentation. Okay. Thank you. Council reports from anybody. Pat?
Thanks, Mike. I was actually able to attend both. We just had our second one earlier today, but it's the Reopening Weathersfield Committee. I'm just basically going to go over what the goal of the committee is and just a brief overview of what was discussed in both meetings. The goal of the committee is to bring together different department heads along with the EDIC and RDA with the intention of not only reopening Weathersfield businesses and schools, but also to ensure the needs of our residents are being met. So basically how, again, this is all pretty preliminary as everything's changing day to day, but so far we've decided to split up into 4 subcommittees, those being business and economic development, government, social services, and the 4th being education. Education, obviously, to make that will solely focus on how to reopen schools. Social services, it's really just making sure of how during this crisis that we can continue to provide services for basic needs and mental health. Government, that would kind of planning and zoning would kind of fall into this category. Things like the special application that was done for outdoor seatings for restaurants in town would be an example of that. And the 4th being business and economic development. This would be specifically focusing on businesses, outreach, how to digest new information, disseminate new information, and the new DECD guidelines as they come out. Like I said before, they're constantly changing. And being on both these meetings, this is going to be a huge undertaking. It's definitely a challenge. Today, I mean, I know I was making fun of Kevin's hair, not really, I was more jealous, but Governor Lamont actually pushed the opening of hair salons and barbers back out to June with less than 48 hours until they were supposed to open. So this is obviously an ever-changing thing, but even with this challenge, having attended both committee meetings, I do think that they have a great strategy as far as outreach is concerned. They're making sure the message gets out there. We discussed that today. But the more information we're able to get from the state as it comes out, the better we'll be able to guide the town in getting open. But I'll have more updates as they continue to meet, but that's what I have so far, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. Amy, I saw your hand was up.
Thanks, Mayor. I attended the library board meeting back on April 28th. The Friends of the Library had to cancel their April book sale, which was unfortunate. They raised about $7,000 in their book sales. The library continues to have no visitors right now. They have a very active Facebook presence, and they're hosting virtual programs, and they're offering one-on-one technology help, and they're working to promote the census. Right now, there's no timeline for when the library would reopen, but they're planning a soft reopening when it's appropriate. They are concerned that the number of patrons will dramatically increase from what they normally see, and that's something that usually happens when the economy is poor, and so they have to prepare for that. There was a thorough cleaning of the library, and employees are still going in. Many employees are still going into the library. They're having their temperatures taken to enter the building. They're wearing face masks. Money's being spent on additional cleaning supplies, and they're tracking everybody who comes in and out of the library. All fines are waived. And then they also talked about the current budget. They were 76% spent out as of April 1st. And I believe when Brooke came to our budget workshop, it was 80% spent out as of May 1st. They have underspent in some categories, and then they've had some increases in expenses and things like the face masks, the wipes, and all of that. Their proposed budget is a $37,000 increase, which is 1.85%, and it's strictly for their health insurance and pension increase. The library board has asked the Friends of the Library for a donation. They're going to do a virtual summer reading program because they aren't able to have the kids come in and participate in that. And then the last thing is the library board voted to use $15,000 of their showman funds for online programming for adult patrons. They've seen a big uptick in some of their programs, some of their online platforms like Hoopla and Overdrive. So they're able to use some of those funds in order to help defer some of those costs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Just real quick before I go ahead to Tom. Gary, I was on the phone with somebody today, and Amy just mentioned it and reminded me. PPEs and cleaning supplies and whatever materials that departments are using to clean and make sure that anything is disinfected, just like Amy was talking about with the library, and wipes and cleaning supplies. Can the town apply for reimbursement for those? I believe we can, and we just have to navigate through either the state or through federal programs, correct?
Correct. Well, to a certain level, we can. Again, we have to show that we're providing, it's for the protection of the general population. So the way we've set it up right now is we are including those as part of our calculation. We'll still be required to come up with 25%, and it's a 75% match. However, there has been some conversation and concern of what actually qualifies as for the protection of the general population. So if we, one department may not qualify, but the other may, depending upon the service. We would argue that town hall and the library, once they provide access to the patrons or the school system, providing access to the general public, that it would qualify. So we are including those.
Right.
But then we have to wait to find out.
Correct. Yeah, true. Thank you. Tom, I had seen your hand earlier as well.
Yeah, just a brief update on planning and zoning. The last few meetings, of course, they're doing virtual meetings, which is working out okay. The first item is the artisanal burger on 24 Maple Street. They came in and asked for an extension of 1 year to begin construction because of basically the downturn of the restaurant business right now. So that was granted. So they have another year before they can start their project. The medical office buildings at the Puritan Furniture site, they're moving forward, and they have taken out their building permit, so that project's moving right along. And lastly, Putnam Park at 100 Great Meadow Road has applied for a permit to have a drive-in movie theater. That application will be heard tomorrow evening. They're proposing to utilize their parking lot with 2 screens showing basically family movies, classical movies. And the idea was the owner was trying to find a way to give people that are hunkered down in their homes, you know, something to do, bring the family out, watch a movie, even though they've seen it 100 times, you know, watch it again, just to get out and about and change the pace. So that was the gist of their operation. Whether it would be a permanent type thing or not, his original intent was just to provide some opportunities during this pandemic, but if it works out and people are utilizing it, he would probably continue. So that was it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I know the movie drive-in has garnered a lot of press, so it's great. I'm not going to ask you guys to name your favorite movie that you want to be have broadcast up there, but my kids want either Back to the Future or Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I kind of agree. I'll take it.
Either one works. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anybody else? Council reports at all? Okay. And council comments? Anybody open up floor? Amy, please.
Thank you. Just a couple things that I know that the summer park and rec brochure is out and registration is scheduled to begin on June 3rd. I've seen on Facebook a lot of people are asking about that. You know, parents trying to make plans for the summer. So I know that it could still change to meet state or local requirements, but as of right now, registration is set to begin June 3rd unless, Gary, something has changed with that. The food pantry is in need of canned meats and pasta and sauce, cereal and personal hygiene items. They're also accepting monetary donations. And if residents are in need of any type of assistance, they can give Social and Youth Services Department a call. Employees, they are working and they're answering the phones there. I'd like to thank the staff, students, and administrators at Wethersfield High School for working together to come up with an alternative graduation plan. I know not everybody is happy with the planning, but it certainly isn't what any of us want. But I'm glad that we are able to have a way to celebrate the accomplishments of our amazing students. There'll be a parade on Friday, June 12th, and I believe, I didn't see this in writing, but I believe that it ends at Wethersfield High and the students will have the opportunity to get their picture taken in their caps and gowns. And then they're gonna plan either an in-person for students only celebration later in the summer, and if that's not possible, they'll have to move to a virtual one. And then the last thing was that with the governor's executive order allowing municipalities to extend the budget deadline 30 days, we could hold off on adopting our budget until June 15th. And I was just wondering if Gary could at some point talk about what if any negative impacts that would have on us holding off until the 15th. And the reason I'm asking is because I know that there's still talk about whether or not we'll have some summer programs, whether or not we'll open our town pools. And I think being able to have that information can really help us in the budget process. So I'd just like to see how the town manager and finance director feel about going out that far and what it does for them as far as, you know, wrapping up one year and getting things going for the next year. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know, Gary, if you want to touch on that with your town manager report, you can do that, shortly. Anybody else with any comments at all? Okay. Well, I'll just a couple things I just wanted to say. I had those same concerns about Parks and Rec as you did, Amy, because I am fielding calls every day from folks who are asking about what's going to happen with youth camps, Parks and Rec youth camps. I believe the YMCA is still planning on having their summer youth camp at Hanmer School, if that hasn't been affected yet. Obviously, the pools are a big deal as well, whether or not to open and what are those guidelines. We were expecting guidelines to come out, I think, last Friday on some of the outdoor recreation from the governor's office. They haven't been, they haven't come out yet. We are still anticipating them. I think, as I said in this morning's Zoom call with EDIC and the folks for the reopening of Weathersfield, we're always looking for guidance right now, and unfortunately, it's a time where things are ebbing and flowing so quickly that we don't really know, what to do for the next step. So I think we should be, waiting to see what's going to happen with at least the Parks and Rec. Somebody had mentioned earlier about the parade. I do want to say, one of the traditions here in Weathersfield and elsewhere is the replacement of the American flags on the grave sites of veterans. And we have the Old Weathersfield Cemetery down on Marsh Street, and Commander John Iwuski from the Bourne Keeney post, American Legion post, he and some of the other members of the post, as well as members of the Memorial Day Parade Committee, went out a couple Saturdays ago and replaced all the flags for the veterans. That was knowing that the parade had already been canceled. It's a great, tradition to do for the veterans and deceased veterans. So for them to do that was a great thing. It's kind of about it. I know the town manager has a lot of reports on what the town is doing right now as it relates to COVID and what we can see from right now what we're planning for reopening of the town. And I'll let you go, Gary, with some of the plans that we're making right now.
Thank you to the mayor and council. What I'll do is kind of an overview of a number of things going on. Thank you to Councillor Pentlow, who touched upon a greater portion of it. But again, just to kind of summarize that, there's been a greater committee that's been formed, a larger committee, to focus on a number of avenues. The committee has been broken down into 4 parts, or 4 subcommittees, one focusing specifically on business development, business growth, government, the government component really on the permitting process, operational side. I'll talk a little bit about that separately, but some internal and external growth. Social and youth services, really the provisions of making sure individuals have access to their basic needs, health concerns, and other supports that we might be able to offer through connectivity. And then the education component, which there's a lot of questions as to what's going on, what's going to happen in the fall going forward. And so I keep calling this a very heavy lift, getting a community back online. As Councillor Pentlow mentioned, as well as Mayor Rell, the game keeps changing. Every time we think we understand it, it tends to evolve in a way that we're not sure of. So it is very difficult to stay on top of, simply because one day it's one thing and it might change 2 or 3 times. But because we have such a diverse mix at the table, there's a lot of information to be shared. So when I talk about subcommittees, I think it's important to note that we're not siloed subcommittees. There's a lot of cross-pollination between the different subcommittees, so that we're bringing everything back to the whole. Not one side has access to information that the other doesn't. So the idea is that we move things up at the same level, and nothing hopefully gets missed in the shuffle. The idea, again, is because it's such a heavy lift, because we need to get back online, we have to do it understanding that there's a basic ecology here. We're all tied to the local economy in one way or another, and we want to find ways to support each other as we do this, but we also need to do this in the safest possible way. The concern and the mantra that we keep talking about is we don't want to open up too quickly and then have to shut things down very quickly because people didn't continue with social distancing. They weren't using face masks. They weren't using the things that have been required or being passed down. So I think an incremental change, being cautious, but trying to encourage growth is something that we need to consider. We have seen, well, I'll split up this way. On the government committee, which is one of those 4 committees, we have broken it into an internal review and an external review. The external approach or review is really about how we help businesses to get back online through our permitting process to make sure that our agencies, internal agencies, as well as external, so that would include zoning, planning, fire marshal, engineering, building department, and external with the health department, I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone, are all working together in a uniform front to make sure that if a business reaches out to us and they want to take advantage of opening an outdoor patio or having access to what's available at the state level, we're bringing them in, we're all evaluating. Each individual regulatory arm is evaluating that application almost at the same time. So the information is being shared. So what we've done is created an application form which has to be handed in electronically with all the supporting documents. It goes to an alias email, and by that, it's one email address that would allow us to take one application coming in. It gets entered into a system that all of those regulatory arms have access to. They get an email notification that there's something pending and waiting approval, and the review process begins. There is a short window to review these. It's a 10-day process. We're trying to keep it as short as possible with the understanding that it's never perfect. Someone might apply and be missing something, so the idea of every regulatory arm getting it at the same time, they have the ability to respond and say, hey, I'm missing this document. It can't move forward to the next stage until we get it. Rather than step 1, it gets approved here. Step 2, it gets approved here. Step 3, oops, you missed something. Can we get this as soon as possible? We're all reading it as close to real time as possible. The internal component is really how Town Hall and the library will look to re-engage the community and open its doors. We haven't gotten there yet. There's a number of steps that have to take place within the building to ensure that we're not only protecting the residents and businesses looking to come in here and do business, but also the staff as well. There's obviously still that issue of transmitting, and we, again, are trying to avoid a concern of seeing an immediate shutdown or a quick shutdown because people are starting to get sick again. So what we have started to do here, almost every department at this point has some level of protection at the counter level, so that if they're coming in to meet with staff, they're actually standing either behind plexiglass or spaced out what would be correct spacing within an area. We're still working on considerable designs which may be within the building, one-way traffic flow within hallways, a main entrance on one side, a exit on another side. But so we're working out a number of logistic components. I'm meeting with staff tomorrow morning, department heads tomorrow morning, to get some feedback. Staff has been very open and upfront with their concerns and their issues. We're doing our best to address those one at a time to ensure that we're not missing something. Again, the idea is for the ultimate protection of residents, businesses, and staff to ensure we're moving forward. Couple just other quick comments, and I'll circle back to Councilor Morambello's question as best I can. We are seeing business as usual. We have a number of our permit applications for building department and other departments are still coming in, still high volume. The economy on that level hasn't stopped. We are still going out doing inspections. Town Clerk's office, I know, has been inundated with requests. Property transfers are taking place. Property searches, title searches we're still busy. And you can say that for every department within here. There's always a call for service. We haven't seen that slow. How they call for service is different. So we're seeing more phone calls. We're seeing more emails. not as many walk-ins, but staff is still out there. Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, as you may recall, we were given notice a year and a half ago that the Hartford Foundation was giving 29 communities $100,000. We formed a selection committee to create then an advisory committee to determine how those funds were going to be given out. Selection committee has entered its next phase, which is creating an application. The application is available online, and we're looking to invite people to apply to be members of the advisory committee. And I had the email address up, but now. And the email to apply, you can do one of two things. You can go to the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving's website, and in the search string type Weathersfield, or you can send an email to weathersfieldcommunityfund@gmail.com. Again, weathersfieldcommunityfund@gmail.com. And those applications are due by May 31st. So, two things that Councilor Morambella brought up. The first is we are planning on following the state's guidance in conjunction with the local health department, as well as depending upon budget approval, with questions about the pool, questions about summer camps. A lot of that information is just still coming out from the state level, and we're evaluating whether or not we can meet those guidelines, whether or not our buildings are capable of meeting those guidelines, and if we can get staffing in place to align. But again, feels like we're kind of building the plane in the sky. As we get information, we have to digest it and determine whether or not we can do that. Kind of a moving target on whether or not we can. The question about waiting on approving the budget is one that Mike O'Neill, the finance director, and I have been discussing. There's still some information that we need to quantify as to what that delay may be for us. A number of things that keep coming up is because it's such a compressed time frame, if we wait too long, you start to close the window on a number of things. The first is, that checklist of things that have to happen. We have to set the mill rate. Once the mill rate's in place, we have to go through and evaluate the impacts within each department, as well as to the taxpayer. And then that might include shuffling staff around, depending upon which way it evolves. And we also have to get the finalized format to a printer. Printer has to print, 10 to 12,000 property real estate transactions, plus a number of personal property tax transactions, as well as motor vehicle, and get those basically stuffed in an envelope and out the door in enough time so that a property owner can't say, hey, I got the bill on July 15th and you only gave me until August 1st to pay it without a penalty. There is a concern about that, but again, we have to work through it to see what we can do. One of those being, where are we in the queue with the printer? So if we originally told the printer we're going to be on, pick a date, they're used to us being approved by May 15th, it might have been, they expected it by June 1st, because again, there's always a buffer from the time council approves it to the time we get it to the printer. And so that might change, that now instead of being, number 30 in the pipeline, we come to them and say, we're not getting it to you until June 15th. Yes, we can get it done, but there may be a delay associated. All of those nuances we're still trying to work out, and I know Mike O'Neill and I have discussed it, and we're trying to figure out a plan of attack. If, again, it's council's prerogative, council's determination on whether or not they feel comfortable based off of the information coming in, we'll do our best to accommodate that. But once I have a better understanding of what that actually means, I will relay that to you.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep.
I appreciate it. I know that there's a lot of stuff that has to go on once we adopt the budget, and that's why I wanted to know how much wiggle room we did have, because I think right now, Mayor, if I'm correct, are we looking at adopting the budget next week? Is that right?
We, actually, Gary and I talked about that earlier today. We had to cancel the 21st deliberations that we had. Memorial Day comes on the 25th. I believe on the 26th we have Board of Ed meeting. Is Board of Ed meeting on the 26th? Or
I think so.
HDC's meeting. I forget.
You might have
There was
both.
one or two others. We were talking about meeting on the 26th.
I think that HDC, because Board of Ed is, oh no, second and fourth.
I think
That
it's
would be
second and
Board of
fourth. I think it's both, yeah.
Ed. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Board of Ed.
Yep. So we were thinking about doing deliberations. We got to check to see if we can meet with a special meeting at the same time the Board of Ed meets. There was a question on whether or not, typically we don't meet at the same time that the Board of Ed meets, but this is a special meeting, so it may be, that we could do the deliberations on Tuesday. Wednesday deliberations with a possible vote on the 29th, it's Friday. Or then we would, move over to the following week and look at possibly Monday the 1st. It's probably as far into June I want to go, hearing what Gary had to say about some of the concerns with the printers and the close proximity to the fiscal year ending and beginning. I just want to make sure we got enough time. I am keeping an eye on what CCM is posting out there for adoptions of the various municipalities and their dates. It seems like most of them are trying to get it wrapped up well before their 1 month extension deadline.
Sure, I understand. And then I just had one other question for Gary, and now I've lost my train of thought. What the heck was it? How many business applications have you received so far? Yeah, you're giving me that look.
And there's a reason why I'm pausing.
I'm wondering how many restaurants and businesses are in fact trying to open on Wednesday.
So the reason why I kind of made that look is originally we had, I want to say 4 before we created the application. And then once we came out with the application, those 4 basically get pulled back. So I don't know how many, I want to say maybe 3 have acknowledged that they're going to be resubmitting. And I think Peter's already off the line, and Pat, I don't know if you recall, but so we basically had 4 that initially said they had interest, and they wanted to get in, and then once the state came out with their actual requirements, and then we created the form, they pulled back, and I believe 3 indicated that they were interested in opening their doors on May 20th, or as soon as possible.
And this is any business that had been closed has to go through this process, or if it isn't changing your business model, you still have to go through this process.
So any business that was previously approved for outdoor dining is already approved. However, they have to certify through the state, which is basically a quick online application. I shouldn't say quick, but it's an online application. Any business that was not previously approved has to go through, rather than a planning and zoning process, it's just a zoning process. And they would also have to certify with the state as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I do know a couple folks who are going to be applying for that outdoor permit. So, any little bit, I guess they all have to weigh the decision of whether or not to open and what their overhead cost would be versus what you might be able to intake
Right.
for revenue. Good. Any other questions for Gary at all after the exhaustive update, which was a really good update? Thank you
Sorry.
for that. No, it's really good. Yeah, seems like we've all met a lot lately, but we really haven't had a council meeting since the end of April. We had the public hearing on May 4th, a couple workshops, but really we haven't been together for an actual council meeting since then. So we do appreciate the update, Gary. Thank you. Moving along into council actions, I believe we have acceptance and resignations from boards and commissions.
Mike, did you, town clerk, skipped over?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did see you turn on your mic too. Sorry, Dolores.
Okay. We have also have some of the executive orders from the governor, and they entail the dog licensing process. June is dog licensing month, and this year it's going to extend through July, and there won't be the $1 penalty a month starting until August if people don't get their dog registered. We will be sending out cards to let people know, and we're also doing it for people who we have emails. We'll email them to let them know, and we would prefer at this time that they just send in a self-stamped envelope for their license, and we will send them back to them. If your dog is neutered or spayed, we need to have your proof of that, and we need to have to know that their rabies are current. And then we'll send, it's $8 to feed for a licensed dog like that, and if your dog is not altered, we still need your rabies, but your fee is $9. So we will expect that more people will be sending that information to us. And we will let them know beforehand, before June, the end of this month, they'll get cards and emails. The other thing is the presidential primary, if we have one still. I guess there's still some debate about whether we have to have it or not. It's going to be the same day in August that we would have a regular primary for people who want a petition to be in different positions, like to if they want to challenge a registrar, or if they want to run for a representative or a Senate seat. So it's still going to be August 11th, and we're still working on days or different locations for that. And I'm assuming that maybe some of our polling places will be we use a couple of schools. We might still have to be able to use them. And if you're telling us that the camp is going to go to Hamner School, then I'm assuming then any of the schools are going to be available. We still use a couple of church rooms that they have for community rooms. And if they may or may not still let the registrars use those venues, and then we might have to. They are working on a plan now, and we have one technically already, but it might be changed because of the virus and different things that are going on. So we're still working on it. We had a vote. We had a teleconference today with the Secretary of State and the assistant, and everything is still up in the air pretty much, as you would be, they did kind of say that people who could use illness to get absentee ballots, and illnesses were designed are either mental or feeling that they are in danger if they have to go to the polling place because of their health, and they would be able to use the absentee ballot. The state is going to give us a red, white, and blue ballot box that we have to put outside somewhere. It'll be secured. And that's pretty much for November. But so we're still going to be doing absentee ballots. People are still sending them in. We don't have the ballots ready, obviously, until July. So if they can send their applications whenever they want in our town. And when this date is available and the ballots are together, they're going to be one ballot, the presidential primary if we have it, and our other normal primary will be one ballot. And the state is supposed to be sending out applications to everybody, but we have people who always send in from here to us, and they can still do that. So that's where they are with that. Same thing. maybe we're going to have another conference next week sometime, but only if they have more information to give us. That's it.
Thank you, Dolores. Yeah, it seems like we got to tighten up that voting, definitely for November, when it's a presidential election and nearly 85 to 90% voting participation comes out. I think we got to put some pressure on the Secretary of State's office to tighten up some of the guidelines and the rules that she is setting forth. Maybe we can have some more clarity for the August one. I mean, that's quickly approaching, but definitely need it before the November one.
Yeah. Well, I expect that we're going to get more information each time they call us. But then they cancel it, so we don't have a definite Monday meeting anymore. They're going to change their dates.
Well, okay. Keep us surprised, that's for sure.
I
Thank
will.
you.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to
That's fine.
you go right into the council action. Now, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I believe you have resignation from boards and commissions.
Sure. I make a motion to accept the resignation of Brooks W. Parker from Town Council, serving a term of 2019 to 2021, effective May 14th, 2020.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstain. Ayes have it. Motion's adopted. Thank you. And then I believe we've got appointments to boards and commissions as well. I think that is you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Make a motion to approve Thomas Sullivan, 78 Beaver Road, as sub-registrar of funeral homes for a term of 1/1/20 to 12/31/25.
Motion's been made by Mazzarella, seconded by Pelletier. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion's adopted. Thank you. Now, going down, I don't believe there's ordinances or resolutions. No unfinished business. 3A, other business, 2020 LOTCIP application. This is for the Great Meadow Road and Heritage Way Trail. As you guys have read through that. I see Derek. Derek just popped on. It's like you knew I was looking for you,
I do.
So thank you for being on, Derek. We appreciate it. And I see both Kevin. Oh, Kevin's still on. We appreciate, Kevin, having you on as well to be able to listen in on this. This is for the portion over by the Putnam Bridge, as well as I believe this is the Cove Park one around Solomon Wells House, leads over by the park by the Cove. So, Derek, what can you tell us of this application?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight to present a couple projects that we're interested in submitting for local transportation capital improvement program funds. I think they'll tie really nicely in with the Bike Walk Month that we had proclamation earlier tonight. This is DOT-funded projects through this program administered by Capital Region Council of Governments, CROG. In 2018, we solicited, they put out a solicitation, we submitted 2 projects. We were awarded both of them, as you know, Wolcott Hill Road reconstruction, Highland Street. So this is the same program. About every couple of years, it varies, but they put out another solicitation. So we came up with a couple of projects we were interested in. The whole program has $35.5 million available, spread around to different municipal projects. Each town's allowed a maximum of 2 projects, a minimum cost of $300,000. Total maximum award to each town is $3 million. This is 100% funded with state funds for construction and construction inspection. With that, the town is responsible for design costs. There are separate categories within the funding program. The two we're applying for are in different categories, so they're not competing for each other. One's in the sidewalk category, one would be considered in the bike ped category. So Gary, if you want to share the Great Meadow Road plan, I could just talk everyone through it.
I want to make sure I have the right one up. Hold on. Easier said than done. Hold on one moment. Having some IT technical difficulties here. Let's try this again. Wrong one?
Wrong one.
Let's try this one.
So I can start talking about it while Gary's pulling that up. So
Well, hold
the
on.
first one is for improvements along Great Meadow Road and Marsh Street. This is part of the Heritage Way Trail network in town. Currently, just given the geometry and the narrow widths of the road, it's not safe for pedestrians or bicyclists. So this project would propose putting in new concrete sidewalks with crosswalks, starting along Marsh Street where the existing sidewalk ends. We have a small project as part of our community connectivity grant funds that we've been awarded. We would tie right into that there on Marsh Street. The sidewalk would continue along the north and west sides of Marsh Street, come up around past Hart Street, and then continue on the same side of the road down Great Meadow Road, ending at DOT's Putnam Bridge Trail project at their parking lot, which will be off of Great Meadow Road just below the bridge. We had submitted this project last year as a transportation alternative set-aside application. We did that in coordination with the Planning and Zoning Department. Unfortunately, the project wasn't selected. They had a number of applications and they could only take very few. So in looking at it, we thought this would rate pretty well as a LOTCIP project. The total project cost is estimated with all the contingencies and added expenditures that we calculate in to be about $1.5 million. This is the maximum project cost for an application of this type is $1 million. We're going to split it into two phases, with the intent being phase one going from the trail project to Hart Street, at least provide that connection to Hart Street, which I understand is one way, but gets us that far, and then that would set us up nicely for trying to get the second project, which I think would weigh a little better because we already did phase one. So phase two would run from Hart Street and tie into the sidewalks along Marsh Street. The second project, if Gary, you want to pull that up, is also part of the trail network at Cove Park, near the Cove. Right now, the trail is really too narrow in a lot of areas. There's a lot of ruts, there's washouts from drainage, safety issues for walking and cycling, as well as many potholes in the parking lot behind the Solomon Wells house that is along the trail. That's historically been a problem and a safety issue the town keeps managing. So as part of this project, we would propose widening the Stone Dust Trail to a 10-foot width, putting in 4 inches of material with base below it so it's structurally sound, widening the driveway to the Solomon Wells house, the northern driveway. Right now it's pretty narrow. It's hard to even get 2 cars by, so we widen it to 22 feet. That driveway is part of the trail network. And with that, we would also look to pave the Solomon Wells parking lot in the back. We would be able to put in some, water quality filtration systems that would address water quality issues. And this project, similar to the other one, which would be tying together 2 state-funded projects, this one would tie into another one of the smaller projects as part of that community connectivity grant program over on Hanwell Road. We had got some money already to do some minor trail improvements and some concrete sidewalk work to tie in the pedestrian network there, as well as putting in a new trail that would go out to the warehouse. So with that, I would tie in nicely with that. I think that would rate pretty well. These 2 types of projects are those that are going to be difficult for us to find funding for without being able to obtain state funds such as this. They really rate a lot better if they can tie to state-funded projects, which both of them do, which is good. We expect for projects of this magnitude, minor enough that I think we can do it with in-house staff, so that really limits our cost from the design perspective. The town has to fund it 100%. So I expect to be able to do that in-house. With your approval, I'm looking to submit the applications to CROG next week. And at this point, like I said, there's different funding sources and categories. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
And I can bring up any picture.
Thank you, Derek. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm kind of getting an echo now.
You come
There
to
you
with me.
Is there a way you can possibly?
All right, hold on.
Yeah, it's happening here, but it's not
I can
happening
hear
on the
you,
screen.
Gary.
Am I echoing?
No, you're not echoing.
But I'm echoing.
Nope.
Just when the mayor was talking.
Okay.
How about now? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody with any questions for Derek?
Mike,
Tom?
a couple things, Derek. The parking lot at Solomon Wells, you're gonna put adequate drainage in that lot? It's pretty bad in the wintertime.
Yes, with it being paved, what we're looking at is grading it to an infiltration type of basin that would have a piped overflow that would direct it to some existing swales that run along the trail. And then we have some cross culverts below the trail to move it from one side to the cove side.
Okay. And then I had a question about the trail width. Is that a state requirement that we expand it to 10 foot wide, or what's the logic for that?
It's not a state requirement, although for trails in these areas, in these off-road areas, 10 foot is a standard that I've seen used in other municipalities. Sometimes they're 8 feet, but looking at 8 feet, sometimes it's a little tight if you got people walking on the trail and bikes going in different directions. I think 10 foot would be reasonable. Sometimes they're wider at 12 and 14 feet as well. But I think given the length of it and where it's located, that 10 foot would be adequate width.
And if I can just add, which I think that's a great question, Deputy Mayor, and a number of the responsible growth grants that came out from the state, they were mandating at least 10 feet, just so it's a concept that you could share the pathway. So since this is a state grant, I wouldn't go less than 10.
And then one last question. I've never been down there in the winter. Is this walkway typically plowed by the town, or is it good weather only use?
I don't believe it's plowed. It's currently a stone dust path. I can't answer that for sure. I think our off-road trails are just left in the natural state and more fair weather use.
If I may, Deputy Mayor, for someone who walks there every day, even during the winter, it does not get plowed in the winter, but there is still heavy foot traffic.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. And Derek.
Okay. Anybody else with any comments or questions for Derek? Amy?
Derek, how competitive are these grants?
They are very competitive. There's approximately 40 towns that are part of CROG, and they do get a lot of applications. They do have a fair amount of money again this year available, and they break them up, like I said, into separate categories, so not everybody's submitting for the same category. But generally, these LOTCIP funds are well-liked because the towns are able to put these out to bid with our standards and our standard procedure. DOT has very limited involvement. They do some administrative reviews before they go out to bid, but they're not doing a lot of technical reviews, so it tends to streamline the process a little bit more and speed things up. So yes, they are very popular.
And what's the time frame if we are awarded the funds for the projects?
That can vary. For the projects we put in May of 2018, we finally got a commitment to fund letter this past fall in 2019. So that was almost a year and a half. So it does take a while. I wouldn't expect to be able to expend the funds before 2022, I think would be reasonable.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. Matt?
Thanks, Mayor. Derek, probably before you got here, I was around when we created the Heritage Way Trail, and one of the issues that we had was vandalism, especially on a lot of the wayfaring signs going into the meadows. Is there any thoughts on how to sort of streamline that? Are we still seeing vandalism, or are the signs all down and we don't see vandalism because we don't put them back up anymore? We had initially talked to the chief of police. That's when we started getting stationary cameras that would sort of catch the vandals in action. It was fascinating to see who was doing it. It wasn't really just kids either. But I'd hate to, of course, pavement, no one's picking up the pavement, but if there's any wayfaring signs and so forth that we can protect, or talk to the chief of police about, ensuring that we can protect the assets that we're paying for. Just a heads up on that, and any response to be thoughtful.
Yeah, I think I personally haven't heard of anything since I've been here the last 4 years about vandalism with the signs. That would be an enforcement issue. Yes, I think we would have some of the signs similar to the ones we recently installed along the whole rest of the trail to give people some guidance on where to go. But I'm not familiar with any problems recently.
I can state,
You may just want to check with the, both work through the town manager and chief of police as you sort of design this. Especially, a lot of the vandalism happened as it heads, into the Great Meadows. I don't, if that's part of this project at all. Or as it maybe moves into these more secluded areas where people don't go as often.
Councilor Forrest, that was actually a good point. I was actually going to raise what my experience from a community development standpoint is. The more foot traffic you point to it, the lower the crime rate, the lower the vandalism rate, because enough people are in the area. And so your last comment kind of just echoes what I was going to say. It is kind of secluded, but the more we encourage alternative modes of transportation and we tie into existing resources, the more we start to reduce those concerns. But I will actually have a conversation with the chief as well.
Great. I think that'll be helpful to just protect the assets that we're paying for.
Thank you. Derek, is that existing, going down Great Meadow Road and then heading down to Elm Street over along by the river? Is that an existing bike path right now? Actually, not that
No, wrong one, right?
one, Gary. The actual map itself.
Yep.
It is currently part of our bike trail from Hart Street down Great Meadow Road. There's no sidewalk, nothing existing, just the 2 lanes of traffic. So we'll be just restriping and shifting some of the traffic in that area. The stretch from Burbank Road, which is right off of the exits for Interstate 91 and south, will be more sharrows because we just don't have the road width with the guide rail on both sides to put full bike lanes in. The rest of the project would have full bike lanes.
Okay. And Gary, it's the one right after the cove.
It was part of your,
Heritage Way path.
it was part of the agenda?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have that map
Okay.
queued up. I can get it if you need it.
No, I can follow up with Derek on that one. I just think I believe it's already existing on the Heritage Way bike path, so it goes into the meadows. Just wanted to follow up on what Councilor Forrest was saying with vandalism going on. Just we're seeing any of it down there, the police or anybody down there. But I would, trespassing, you don't know what they're up to. They could be vandalizing or they could just be simply trespassing down there. Timetable for the state to do the Putnam Bridge connection to Glastonbury. Have we got any updates from the state on that at all, Derek?
Yes. The last update I had gotten was they're looking to put it out to bid this winter with construction starting next year.
Okay.
So ideally, that would be in place. Probably they'd just probably finish up with that as the time we'd be looking to do our connection to it.
Great. Yeah, that would be a perfect.
Assuming, this is all just an application at this stage. So Assuming we did get the funds, that's where we can.
Right. Okay. Anybody else with any questions on this? No. Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. You don't look to your left or right anymore. You got to look all the way around and see if anybody's raising their hands. Please, if you do, just jump out at me. Okay. I think. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to apply for and execute any and all documents related to the acceptance of Connecticut DOT funds for the Heritage Way Bike Trail and or Cove Park as stated in this document.
Great.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstained. Ayes have it. Motion's adopted. Dolores, if you couldn't catch it, the motion was made by Flanagan and seconded by Pentelow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. And you're up here for the second one as well, too. So,
Yes.
this is the bid for the RFP for the Wookett Hill by Jordan all the way up to the Hartford line, Victoria Road, if I'm not mistaken. Was that done? That wasn't this council. It was the previous council in October that had approved the $200,000 surveying for it. So
I think that was this council.
Derek,
Yeah, it was last October,
Oh, it was October.
so I believe it was the previous council.
previous council. So you might want to just bring some of these folks up to speed. I know Matt, Amy, and I were there for it, but
Sure.
maybe I give a quick little overview of the project, and then by quick I mean quick overview, and then just jump into this for the RFP.
Okay. So this agenda item is for awarding consultant services to a consultant that we put out for an RFP. This is another one of our LOTCIP projects. I mentioned them earlier. In 2018, we applied for 2. This is the second one, Wookett Hill Road. So this is reconstruction of Wookett Hill Road from Jordan Lane north into Hartford to Victoria Road intersection. So it goes about 150 feet into Hartford. What we have out there is just concrete road base. If you've driven it, it's in very bad shape. You can see the cracks and potholes forming where the concrete slabs join each other. So we're going to take everything out. It's going to be a full reconstruction, full depth. We're going to be putting in some concrete sidewalk, ramps, bus pads out there for bus stops along the route. We're going to have some bike improvements with some bike lanes, new granite curb throughout the whole project, and some pedestrian upgrades as well. So it's a good project. This is another one that we applied for with the same reason, because this is a project we wouldn't really be able to fund unless we could get funds of this nature. So with that, we had gotten awarded $2.696 million for it. So it's similar to what I just explained earlier. That $2.7 million is for construction and construction inspection services that we funded. We pay for survey and design services. We spoke when I was in last October about the fact that this type of project is really just too large and time consuming for it to be done in-house with staff. So last fall, town council accepted the funds from the state and approved up to $200,000 in road funds to hire a consultant for this work. So we issued an RFP over the winter. This is for a survey, a traffic study related to the DOT facilities, the state facilities that are along the route, geotechnical investigations to confirm subsurface conditions for pavement design, design plans, specifications, cost estimate, and bidding assistance. So everything to pretty much get us up to start of construction. There were some delays. We extended the deadline due to the pandemic. Even with that, we did get 9 proposals. There was a wide range in costs from $50,000 up to almost $200,000. We looked at all the proposals. They were all rated by 3 staff members based on the ratings exclusive of the fees. VHB came in with the highest rating as the best proposal that was submitted. It happens to be they were also the lowest fee proposal that was submitted, which normally that doesn't happen. So I think I had provided a spreadsheet to you that has a listing of everyone that has submitted, and it has some additional columns that kind of split up how the costs are allocated. We are paying for tasks 1 through 4. Task 5 would be funded with that 2.7 million of state funds. So we're looking at a cost at this point about $50,000. I did call them. I reviewed the scope of work with them, which was they put a very detailed scope in. They knew what we were looking for. They were comfortable with the numbers. They're a local company. They're out of Weathersfield. They do these types of projects all the time. They are one of CROG's consultants for reviewing LOTCIP applications and doing design, so they're very familiar with the program. So the request was put in for a $75,000 allocation. That's really because I'm, knowing the type of project this is and how it works with the review process going back and forth with CROG and maybe DOT's involvement, we may need some additional field investigation or analysis work. So that extra $25,000 is just a contingency. We are well below where we thought we would need to be for this work. And the way we structured the contract, depending on our experience with them all through the design process, we may opt to hire them for construction inspection services as well, which they all provided proposals for, or we may opt to, if we choose, to use another consultant for that. So that would be something I would come back to. So be happy to answer any questions anyone has any.
Great. Thank you, Derek. Tom?
Yeah, one of the questions you answered quite well, Derek. I was surprised at the variation in the prices of the proposals, but you explained that. I have a question about the project, not so much this bid, but how do we actually do the work that's in Hartford, or is Hartford involved with the project?
Yeah, the way this worked, we worked with the city of Hartford. We thought it didn't make sense to terminate the project at the very north end of the islands in the middle. That's where the town line is. It's kind of in the middle of the road segment. So we thought it made sense to go all the way to Victoria Road. So during the application process, we worked very closely with Hartford and discussed this with them, and they were on board. They're looking at, on their own costs, doing some traffic signal upgrades as part of the project as well that they will fund. So the state is funding all of the work. I think from the application perspective, it gave us some extra points, being that it involved not just Weathersfield, but also was helping out the city of Hartford. So yes, the work for the project will extend into Hartford, but in coordination with them.
So you're running the project, though. The town of Weathersfield's running the project.
That's correct.
Hartford just make sure they're on board with everything we do.
Yeah, the way the RFP was structured, they're involved with all the meetings we have with the consultants, so they can have their say for what they may need in their town or in the city. But yes, it will be managed by the town, to us, engineering department.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Derek, I just had a couple questions about VHB. You said they're here in Weathersfield, which is great. They're on the CROG bid list as well. It's just you look at the comparisons, between them and their second place was $35,000 difference. But then you jump, all the way up to even the third place was over double the amount that they bid in for. That doesn't even take into account, all 9 of them, but just from first to third is over double. I know you said you fully vetted it and, you called them up and made sure that everything was accurate. That's a great price to come in at, especially that we, originally in October, set aside $200,000. We're going to get it for a fraction of that, with maybe a little bit with the 75 or the other 25,000 to bring it up to 75, just in case we need to supplant any funds. No concerns, though, that they're at 50 and the rest are in excess of 100 practically.
Yeah, that's really why I called the project manager. He explained, and it's outlined in their scope of work, that they're doing all the work in-house. A lot of the other consultants were hiring contractors or hiring other consultants to do, say, the traffic study or do geotechnical. They have the capability to do that in-house, so that was a cost savings. They also said they were just very aggressive with this. They thought it was a good opportunity to do a project like this for the town, in their own town. So, you know, I put out a really detailed RFP. They came back with an explanation of everything they're going to do that I felt was pretty tight, and I'm, you know, at this point, comfortable with it. I understand where you're coming from with that, which is why I'd like approval for some extra funds. We would contract for their amount, and if there's needs based on what they come up with through the design process, then we would do change orders for the contract. And do funds for the. So look, about the overall cost, yeah, we came in with 200, and that was on the conservative side because I didn't know when exactly this was going to happen and if there were delays, funding or anything like that. So it was on the conservative side. If you take their design costs and their construction administration costs, they're at about 100, I believe, which is about half. But that's they're low. But at this point, I feel pretty comfortable using them. We've used them before. They do our pavement management evaluations usually. So they've worked with us before, and they seemed comfortable with what they had put in.
Great. Well, if you're comfortable with them, then that's good. One other question I had was, this is capital funds, the original $200,000. I believe, Gary, is that into the capital budget?
That
was road.
Local road.
Road, yeah.
Okay. So does that extra 125,000 just, where would that be put forward to?
I think that would stay in the road fund, similar to, that's where we do our paving programs from,
Right.
is that. So we thought it made sense to be able to fund the design to do the road work, which we want to be able to do. We're going to have the state funds do that. So we'll just, the money would come out of that pool of money that we use for paving roads, and that was anticipated when we put in the application.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I just follow up real quick? So we did not add funds to the road fund. We just, I'm trying to remember. We just determined that we would use the existing road funds to fund this part of the project. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so we didn't add funds, we didn't add 200 specifically for this project. We just said we would use the existing pool of money to fund the project.
Correct. It was a qualifying use because engineer and survey would be part of a normal road project. So you basically encumbered or earmarked $200,000 with the assumption that it would come in. I think it was not to exceed $200,000, and we got lucky.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Can I get a motion for this one?
Yeah, Mike, I motion to authorize the town manager to award the contract to VHB of Weathersfield in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and to execute any and all agreements related to the same.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye. Sorry, a little late there.
I was late too, I'm sorry.
With the mute button, I had to get all the way over.
No nays.
It's a yes. It's a yes.
All ayes, no nays, no abstentions. Okay, Dolores, that was a motion made by Councilor Pentelow, seconded by Councilor Flanagan.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you, everyone.
right into the minutes afterwards. Yes. Yes, the minutes. Last meeting for April 20th. Gary, do we have to vote on each individual minute, set of minutes, or can we vote on all? I think we have 4 or 5 of them together as one package.
You can do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was Dolores chiming in, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're the better person to answer.
Great. I'll let you guys take a second to read the minutes of the regular meeting of April 20th, the
That was the public hearing.
No, public hearing was May 4th.
Okay, public hearing.
Public hearing on the May 4th, the budget workshop was May 7th. Second budget workshop was May 11th, and then our final budget workshop last Thursday was May 13th. Take a look at those, and afterwards, if I can get a motion to approve, or if you guys have any questions or comments, please say so. It's a lot of them. I tried to do my best today. I didn't find much that concerned me. Nobody has any comments? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Moved by Forrest, seconded by Mazzarella. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Minutes have been adopted. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Dolores.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think we have somebody who called in. Gary,
Yep.
public comment?
Hang on one moment. Okay, Mayor, they're off mute if you want to.
Sure. Mr. Young. Hi, how are you?
Okay, this is Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. First of all, I'd like to tell you that I dialed in this evening at 10:07. I wasn't able to get really to see all of you folks until 12 minutes after 7. I also couldn't get the telephone to work until you had public comment when the manager had mentioned, 951-433-2942 is the number you dial in, because on your agenda it has a number 94629444893, which I have been dialing since 10 minutes before 7. So I was sitting here waiting, and I missed the first section. So anyway, I did have some questions regarding the budget the budget hearing from 2 weeks ago. And the one was, I had sent a message to the manager asking him to, since I had searched his budget book, I was looking for elderly circuit breaker and how much money we were budgeting for that. And I was also looking for renter's rebate and how much money we were budgeting for that. I can't find it in the budget, and I sent him a message a week ago. I didn't check my email today, but I have not heard back from him as of yesterday as to where it is in the budget. Is it under elderly circuit breaker, or do you give it a different name? Or is it renter's rebate or some other kind of name? Maybe the manager can talk about that before you close today or tonight. Since I did tune in kind of late and was not able to hear what was going on, I guess I'm at a big disadvantage on a number of issues. But at the budget hearing, I keep hearing from our fellow citizens, we need this now more than ever. I kept hearing that all night long. But I've heard that many times at other budget hearings. We need that more now than ever. I mean, it's old, folks. I mean, there's nothing original about it. Yet our citizens keep preaching those, it's now more than ever. And that's to spend more money. That's what our citizens want to do, more now than ever. Not original at all. It's just a bunch of parrots talking. But anyway, we need to do something about our budget. And I don't really know where you folks are at the moment with the budget. And as I'm talking about that budget, in the budget book also, you had on page number C, C-96, you have on number 4 on that page, and it says engine number 31 and engine number 33 have been approved for replacement. A comprehensive specification package was put together for the replacement of engine 31, and of course it did something with 33 also. But are those currently in our budget, or are those other new ones? Because we just bought we just had last year 2 new fire trucks. Are those the same ones, or are these 2 different ones? That's a question that the manager can answer at the end of the meeting. As I said, we need to do something about controlling our budget. We have for years had the seniors of this town carry the town minority. And what we need to do now is, since our Board of Education has gone gung-ho with using the Chromebooks for whatever, and they're using them now for distant learning. I had proposed at the last town council meeting, and I think you should hold off on your budget and finalizing your budget and incorporate savings that we should be getting from those Chromebooks. We citizens put up a heck of a lot of money to this education system, and we get very little out of it. I think the Chromebooks, though, would be something that can really carry us over the line by having them used as distant learning going forward. And I would suggest, and I propose, at the moment, that you would start with the seniors. The seniors and the juniors of our high school, put them on distant learning starting this September. Because when they go to college, they're going to be doing distant learning, or they're going to be doing a tremendous amount of computerized work. They're going to be relying on their computers, and they may as well start learning here and give us some savings, since we've been putting the bucks up for so long. And I think if we start with our seniors and juniors and put them on distant learning ASAP, we could save a lot of money and change our budget for the Board of Education by reducing those teachers and those staff members that we won't be needing anymore. We only need 1 to teach a class, even though there's 300 students. Well, first of all, there's only 300, probably 200 or 300 seniors. But we can reduce teachers, and that would give us a good savings. And we could look at going into the next year of doing some more of that with the next set coming along. And I think we need to utilize this electronic stuff that we have. Our students are great with it. I've gone to many town Board of Education meetings. I've seen presentations that were wonderful. I mean, it was like Hollywood. These kids have learned and picked up and are able to do this kind of computing or running these computers, and they know how to do it. They pick it up very easy. They can do this on a learning distance basis. There shouldn't be any excuse not to do this. Now, I know the superintendent just bought 2,000 more Chromebooks, and of course he's going to bill that probably to the coronavirus issue. We also saw just this the other day in the Hartford Current where Hartford itself bought 3,500 Chromebooks, and they're going to put it against the coronavirus expenditures. Someone's got to get an investment back. And we citizens, whether we pay federal tax, and all of us pay federal taxes, we all pay state taxes and we pay local taxes. We deserve to get something back. And I would hope that you would go back and redo your budget on the Board of Education side. You've got time to do this. Cut out those individuals that you need to cut out and reduce our cost. Tonight you spoke about the pools, camp, that kind of stuff. I don't think we're going to have any of that this year. I think you should also look at that and take that out of the budget this year.
Well,
We will definitely be looking at those,
Until
Mr.
July
Young.
and after.
Yeah.
Into next year. So I think you have a lot of things to look at saving. I also think if we didn't have more students in the high school, think of this. If
Thank
you
you, Mr.
reduced some of those seniors and juniors from the high school, you could maneuver students around to the point that high crest where you need to put, where you're going to pay for that temporary kind of rooms.
Thank you, Mr. Young. We appreciate your,
You could save putting those on and shifting students around. And
Thank you.
eventually we would end
we'll
up
definitely be
saving a lot.
taking these into consideration. That is,
More than consideration, Mayor. I mean, this is a way of saving money and giving back to us citizens who have paid dearly. Thank you very much.
Gary, there's actually, I just got an email from a gentleman who tried calling the other number as well. I'm going to send him an email with the other number that has been posted on. Actually, it went to the entire council. So if you don't mind, I will respond back to him with the correct number.
Yep, do you need it again?
No, I wrote it down. I will do that. So as I do that, just bear with us so that one other person could call in.
It's weird, it looks like the agenda posted has the correct number, but the website has a different number. So I'll figure out what happened for next time.
Gary, do you have the ability to call out? Could you call this gentleman?
I can, if you have a phone number.
I don't know if the mayor wants to text
I can
you the
actually.
phone number instead of reading it over the air.
What I will do, I just sent him an email, but what I can do is multitask and hopefully be able to call, read an iPad, and be on Zoom at the same time.
Because I see that I received the email as well. I'd be happy to text it to Gary so he can get that gentleman on the line.
I think I have one too. Ridge Road.
Mr. Toole is
Yep.
the one who, yeah.
I can call it, I have it as well.
Oh, we lost the mayor.
Tom, you're running the show.
I believe it's.
I was able to successfully call him and paused myself. And actually, it looked like I was wearing a tie, so you know that's not a true rendition of me right now. Not lately. So yeah, Gary, there should be a gentleman calling in, I believe, with a 721 number. If you see it come across the board.
Yeah. And I can hear the 10-second delay in the background.
Hello? Hello?
And Mr. Toole, if you could just mute your TV or computer in the background.
All right. So muted.
I apologize. It looked like the agenda or the invite.
No, I understand. I understand. But and I feel so privileged that you made the way for me here. I'd like to begin. My name is Tim Toole. I'm at 886 Ridge Road, and my phone number is 8607-218-526. I wanted to give life to the idea of a 0% budget increase this year. It seems like this idea is like a third rail that nobody wants to touch.
but I think as an idea whose time has come, this year's budget should not be adopted in a business-as-usual manner. I'm pretty sure several things would have to be removed from the proposed budget to meet that goal. I hope the council can become reconciled to this goal this year, and please let me know how I can help. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Toole. We appreciate it. Thank you for your patience while we're working through remote dialing in.
You bet. You bet.
And
Thanks.
thank you
Thanks for your help.
Yes, no problem. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Have a great night. Okay, I appreciate that. I don't know if we should wait for anybody else to send either an email to us, or if anybody's got a a message or anything like that from somebody who's been trying to call in. If not, I'll go back to the agenda. I don't believe we have an executive session tonight, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Morin-Bello, seconded by Councilman Pentelow. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dolores.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Kevin, good to see you.